All right, we're going to start chapter 11 in 157. So chapter 11 deals with the nervous system. So the nervous system coordinates our body functions to help us maintain homeostasis. So let's take a look at some general information of the nervous system. So looking at organization of the nervous system, so we can divide our nervous system into two main parts. We have the central nervous system, which is our brain and spinal cord, and then we have the peripheral nervous system, which is the nerves and ganglia outside of the central nervous system. So the central nervous system, our brain and spinal cord, this is the commanding and integrating center of the nervous system. All right, so it controls all the other parts of our body and other parts of the nervous system. And we'll talk about what integration means here in a little bit. So looking at the peripheral nervous system, this is the portions of our nervous system outside of the central nervous system. So this includes nerves and ganglia and plexuses. Now plexus is where these nerve cells intermesh, and a ganglia is, you'll see these little swellings here or there, and that's what a ganglion is. And we'll talk more about what that is here in a minute. So what the peripheral nervous system does is it links our central nervous system to the body. Now there are three divisions of our of our peripheral nervous system. So if we go to this picture, it just shows two, but there's actually a third one, which we'll get to here in a little bit. All right. So the first is our sensory division. So our sensory division of our peripheral nervous system. So our sensory division are nerve fibers that transmit impulses to the central nervous system from sensory receptors. All right. So there are two sensory division parts. So there is the somatic sensory division, and this carries signals from receptors from the skin, muscles, bones, and joints. So soma means body. So it's going to like our body, movements of our body, and feelings from our body. The other is a visceral sensory division. So this carries signals from receptors, mainly from viscera in the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. So in this area here. All right. Next is the motor division. So this is showing the motor division over here. So the motor division, these are nerve fibers that transmit impulses from the central nervous system to effectors. So coming out of our brain and spinal cord, out to the body. An effector is a muscle or gland that responds to stimulation. So two parts of this. One is the somatic nervous system. So the somatic nervous system, these are motor pathways that lead to skeletal muscles. So skeletal muscles are voluntarily controlled. So this kind of movement that I'm doing here, that's all voluntary movement. All right. So the other is our autonomic nervous system, or the ANS. So the autonomic nervous system is portions of the nervous system that controls the actions of the viscera, so our internal organs. And this is involuntary. You don't think about your heartbeat, you don't think about digestive activities. Those are involuntary actions. Two parts to our autonomic nervous system. One is the parasympathetic division. So our parasympathetic division is the division of our autonomic nervous system that controls the normal activities of the viscera. So your breathing rate right now, your blood pressure right now, things like that. All right. The sympathetic division here, this is a division of our autonomic nervous system that activates the body to cope with stress or excitement. Another way to think about this is this deals with the 4 F's response. So the 4 F's, so fight, flight, freeze, or mating, and you can think of a synonym for mating. So fight, flight, or freeze, so like if a bear came in here and I would see the bear, more than likely I would run away, so the flight there, but some people would freeze if a bear came in and because they wouldn't know exactly what to do. Hopefully you wouldn't fight a bear because you'd probably lose. It is also used in mating as well. So, all right, so moving on here, the last part of our sensory division, not shown on here, is the enteric division. So the enteric nervous system. So this is a complex network of neuron cell bodies and axons within the walls of the digestive tract. It is capable of controlling the digestive tract independently of the central nervous system through reflexes. So it's kind of its like little stand-alone little guy, and I'm really not going to talk about it much because it's just very different from the rest. Let's look at the functioning of the nervous system. So moving through these. All right, so looking at the function of the sensory nervous system. First, we're going to have some sort of sensory input. So here, sensory receptors are going to monitor internal and external changes, and they're going to send those impulses to our central nervous system. So think about sensory receptors, your senses, your sense of smell, sight, touch, right? All that stuff, right? It's going to send a signal into our central nervous system, and that's where we're going to have integration occurring. And integration is where our central nervous system is going to process and interpret that sensory input, and then it decides what to do with that input, all right? And once it decides what to do with that input, it's going to send that impulse out to, so it's going to send a signal out, and that's where we're going to get our motor output, all right, or a response. So here the impulse is going to go to an effector or muscle or gland, and the effectors are going to respond to the stimulus, okay? So, this is simple things like, if I touch something hot, I would jerk away from that. That is only going to go through a very small port of my spinal cord. So sensory receptors tell me, oh, that's really hot. It goes up into my spinal cord. I have a reflex. I pull my hand away. That's integration. That's our function in the nervous system. But the same thing occurs like if you're driving along and you see a light change from green to yellow, right? What do? Right? Most of my students in the past say they put their foot on the gas, right? So that's sensory information that is, interpreted by our, picked up by your eyes. It interprets it, your brain interprets that input, and then you make a decision on what to do. All right? The same thing could happen if you, see a bear, right? We kind of talked about that. Hopefully you run away from that situation.